So welcome, everyone. We're going to start Bible study, chapter 8 of Revelation.
And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets.
Thank you. So verse 1, we are still in the throne room of God. And after a short interlude of the sealing of God's servants, which happened in Revelation 7, Jesus now opens the seventh seal. Immediately after the seal is opened, there's complete silence in heaven for half an hour. Now, half an hour might not seem like a long time, but in a place where there's continuous praise and worship, this is basically like an eternity. The silence that happens reflects the solemnity of the occasion. Judgment is about to be cast upon the earth, at least a third of it anyway. Verse 2, as we talked about in Revelation 6 with the nesting doll analogy, the opening of the seventh seal releases the sounding of the seven trumpets. So we have the seven seals. We did 1 to 6 already. Now the seventh seal is actually what releases the seven trumpets. So it's kind of like these nesting dolls where one kind of unlocks the other. A few things to note about the trumpet judgments. They have not happened yet. So we're in Revelation 8. The trumpet judgments haven't yet. And even in our reality, in our earth, we have not seen these trumpet judgments occur yet. The general thing to note about these trumpet judgments is they generally affect about a third of the earth. So trumpets 1 to 4, trumpet number 6, they use that word, just a third of the earth being affected, not the entire earth, not like the bowls. The bowls actually, which are last, they actually affect the entire earth. The time frames associated with some of these trumpet judgments range from anywhere from 5 months to a year, where it's mentioned how long these judgments occur over. So whereas the seal judgments, which we explored already, which are for false religion and worldviews, they occur over nearly 2,000 years. I believe these last trumpet judgments, because of their time frames and because they haven't happened yet, occur over the last 3.5 years here of the Great Tribulation, which is still to come. Let's see. Bernie, would you mind reading 3 to 6, please? Oh, I believe. Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire off the altar, and cast it on into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound.
Okay, thank you. So this is a picture of an angel just holding a censer. A censer is kind of like this, it's almost like a pot, but it holds this incense in it, has these chains kind of attached to it. And so this angel is holding that. And he's collecting the prayers of the saints and presents them before God. In terms of these prayers of the saints being compared to incense, let's just look at the Psalm of David, 141. I'll read this out. Psalm of David, Lord, I call upon you. Hurry to me. Listen to my voice when I call to you. May my prayer be counted as incense before you, the raising of my hands as the evening offering. Set a guard, Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not incline my heart to any evil thing, to practice deeds of wickedness with people who do wrong. In verse 1, David calls upon God. Verse 2, he asks for his prayers to be counted as incense before God. The symbol of incense is a sweet, pleasing aroma unto God. The raising of his hands represents offering his body as a sacrifice, the evening offering. So there was a morning offering and an evening offering in the Hebrew custom, and this was a sacrifice. And so when David's raising up his hands, he's offering his body as a sacrifice unto God. And that's kind of how we have to see ourselves, is that we are just a willing servant for God. We offer our bodies as a willing sacrifice. And this is what Jesus did. To have God do with it as he wills it. So we just be obedient to God. He can use us in whatever way he sees fit. Verse 3-4, even under trial, David asks God to guard what he says, to watch our mouth, watch what we say, and keep him free from wanting to do evil. One of the things people, when they're being persecuted, they might want to return evil for evil. And we have to get away from that. We just say, no, we don't want to do any evil. Please keep us free from that temptation. And that's what he means by practicing wickedness himself. So just don't let our heart be inclined to do those things. I'm just going to continue with verses 8-10. This is just the ending of the psalm. For my eyes are toward you, God, the Lord. In you I take refuge. Do not leave me defenseless. Keep me from the jaws of the trap which they have set for me, and from the snares of those who do wrong. May the wicked fall into their own nets, while I pass by safely. So David places his entire faith in God. His defense solely rests in God. We talk about, times are changing and some people will sort of think we need to prep and be prepared to fight back and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? We have to get to the place where we just put our entire faith in God. Our defense has to solely rest in him. We just have to believe that he will be the one to protect us and guide us. David asks for protection from the evildoers and that they may fall into their own traps. If you guys remember the book of Esther, Haman sets a trap for Mordecai. This is from Esther 5:14. Then said Zeresh, his wife, that's Haman's wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. So Haman was setting this trap for Mordecai, but the king in the story, who represents God, he actually reversed things, and it was Mordecai that actually, so it was Haman that actually ended up hanging on his own trap. And so that's kind of how we have to trust God. So I just wanted to say that short interlude there, just the smoke of the incense counts as prayers towards God. So the saints say their prayers and God receives those prayers. Now, think of these prayers of incense as building up over the 2,000 years of persecution towards the saints. And finally, towards the end, which is this coming up 3.5-year tribulation, the censer is so filled with the fire of God's judgment that he has no choice but to release these judgments on mankind, a third of mankind. It's kind of like what happened in Noah's day, as in the days of Noah, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. When the Nephilim were doing so much evil on the earth, they were cannibals, they were taking advantage, they were bullies, they were doing all sorts of evil things, that God had to intervene, and that's why he had to send the flood. A lot of people think God was evil for sending the flood because he flooded out humanity. What people don't realize is that all of humanity was actually corrupt except for Noah and his family. They called Noah righteous, and that doesn't mean he was a perfect person. He said perfect, actually, sorry, was the word. They called Noah perfect, and that doesn't mean he was a perfect person. He wasn't a saint. He wasn't perfect in all his ways. He was perfectly human. And that's why the genealogies actually speak of each of his ancestors as being human. He was not contaminated with Nephilim DNA, nor were his sons. His wives were, because they were from the land, but his sons were not. And so this is why God preserved Noah, just to preserve the perfect line of humanity, which wasn't corrupt with Nephilim DNA. That's kind of what the angels were doing. They're trying to corrupt the bloodline so that Jesus couldn't be born. So that's why God had to step in, intervene. Things were just getting too much. And I believe in these next few years, things will start getting to be way too much, that God will have no choice but to intervene. We're seeing some crazy things play out, but I think it's going to get crazier. All right. Verse 7. Oops, I'll just step back a bit. Arlene, would you mind reading 7-9 for us, please? Oh, I think you're on mute, Arlene. Thank you.
There, yeah. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. And the second angel sounded, and as it were the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed.
Okay. All right. So 7 to 9. So some people try and take these verses as figurative rather than literal. But if you read very carefully, they are more descriptive than poetic, and so should be interpreted as literal events to come. People will kind of put the grass represents living things, or the trees represent people, or things like that. But if you just read it very carefully, you'll see it's very, very descriptive. The sea becoming blood. A third of the creatures in the sea were destroyed, and the ships, third part of the ships were destroyed. It sounds very descriptive. So we hear the first trumpet. Hail and fire mingled with blood are cast upon the earth, and a third of the trees and grass are burnt up. Now, again, I just want to make this distinction again. So with the trumpet judgments, a lot of them affect a third of things. So not the entire earth just yet, just a third. And this is kind of God's judgment on part of humanity, but it's not all of humanity just yet. The second trumpet is a great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea. And again, a third of the sea becomes blood, a third of the sea creatures die, a third of the ships become destroyed. Melissa, would you mind reading 10 to 11, please?
And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter.
Thank you. All right. So the third trumpet is a great burning star that falls from heaven onto the rivers and springs. A third of the drinking water sources become wormwood. So wormwood is actually a woody shrub, and it has some medicinal properties, typically being helpful with digestion. But it's also known for having a very bitter taste. It also contains a chemical, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but thujoni, I'll call it, which can be poisonous at higher doses. It has some effects on the central nervous system. It can cause seizures. So in verse 11, we see that a third of the drinking water becoming wormwood becomes bitter, but also poisonous. I just want to read from Jeremiah 9:15. So Jeremiah 9:15 is kind of a prophetic picture of these trumpet judgments. Who is the wise man that may understand this? And who is he to whom the mouth of the Lord hath spoken, that he may declare it? For what the land perisheth and is burned up like a wilderness, that none passeth through. And the Lord said, because they have forsaken my law, which I set before them, and have not obeyed my voice, neither walked therein, but have walked after the imagination of their own heart, and after Balaam, which their fathers taught them. Therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will feed them, even this people, with wormwood, and give them water of gall to drink. I will scatter them also among the heathen, whom neither they nor their fathers have known, and I will send a sword after them till I've consumed them. So verse 12 is just a prophetic picture of the trumpet judgments. The land is destroyed and burnt up. So the land is destroyed and burnt up. Verse 13 to 14 explains the reason these judgments are given, and it's because of disobedience to God's law and voice. So have not obeyed my voice, neither walked in my law. And Balaam, if you'll recall, Balaam instructed the children of Israel to rebel against God. So that's kind of the doctrine of Balaam. We study that in the letters in Revelation. And then verse 15 to 16, gall is similar to wormwood in that it is both bitter and toxic. And so we see that God feeds these people wormwood and gall. Wormwood can be thought as God's judgment for disobedience. Now, actually, before I do that, I'll just pause it and just if anyone has any questions, anything they want to ask, any sort of commentary, feel free.
So I'm unsure. Is what's happening right now sounds a lot like what's in the Bible, and a lot of this stuff isn't God didn't cause a lot of this stuff. So I'm a little confused on that.
How so? Like you're thinking like these things haven't happened yet, or?
Well, no, the fires have, the fires have started.
Yeah.
Our drinking water is being compromised. There's a lot of things that are happening right now.
So you would think that some of these trumpet judgments are occurring right now?
Well, I was blaming I was focusing more on the evil that was happening with that instead of God's wrath.
Okay, so you're thinking the evil things are causing this.
Yes.
Yeah, when you look at things like, when it comes to God's judgments, right? At the end of the day, God is sending them. Like God can stop a judgment, right?
Right.
It's not that God is evil. It's just that human beings bring this upon themselves. It's like when God gave us the 10 Commandments, he's saying, follow these 10 Commandments because these are the things that are going to keep you free from being harmed. And it's like there's almost these intrinsic things that if you sin, if you break those laws, it'll bring calamity upon you. It'll bring destruction upon you. And God is just saying, try and pay attention, right? And what happens is when people sin, those things fall upon them. But it's not that God is making it happen towards them, it's they bring it upon themselves. And that's kind of what sin is people bringing it upon themselves. So kind of when I use that word judgment, I'm just saying that God is allowing the judgment to happen to those people. Now, you mentioned things like the fires and things like that. And I would say those are birth pains still. I don't think that's the trumpets yet being released. Birth pains are kind of like, when a woman's going to labor, they kind of get those little labor pains at first initially. They're just little twinges. And that can be months before they actually deliver. And then they start getting more and more intense towards the end. And then it starts getting very, very, very intense. And a lot of times you can look at Revelation as sort of a crescendo where these little birth pains are occurring early and then they get more and more intense. But I would not think the judgments are released yet. I would say when those judgments get released, they will be abundantly obvious. And I actually supernaturally believe there'll be some trumpet sound associated with them. I know people have kind of said they've heard trumpets. I've heard rumors of people hearing these trumpets. But again, I think it'll be an obvious thing that these are judgments cast upon the earth. Is that?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that it was evil on God's part.
Yeah.
It's just when certain things are occurring all the time, I just blame the evil. That there's so much evil in the world that people are doing this and are caught up in this. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people bring it upon themselves, like through sin. So as we sin, we bring a lot of this upon ourselves, and that's the judgment, right? Yeah. So Jesus, sets us free from judgment, but we have to accept God's gift of salvation.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that hopefully clears that up.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Anybody else?
I see it too, Chris, as it was in the days of Noah, and there was all sorts of fiddling with the species and things like that, and we're into that heavy now, like to try to change what God has created in man and woman and creatures and all those things like that. And I was just looking at Deuteronomy, and yeah, there's a place under the law, or if we do that, these things will happen. And yet in Christ, as you said a moment ago, we're free from the curse of the law.
Yeah.
But there's still for every sin that happens, there has to be some sort of judgment for that. Even in when we transgress, even in we wonder why things happen to us, and it's walking uprightly before the Lord, and yet the enemy will attack, and we have all those other things. But I believe that it's the spirit of the world working in children of disobedience that we got this. that like, who are we listening to when we perform these acts? Is it in obedience to the Lord, or is it our own doings and our own ideas, which is prompted by the enemy?
Amen. Yeah. So true. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Oops.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah,
can I add a few things?
for sure. Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I certainly agree with what you had said about how, as daunting a task as walking upright before the Lord can be, following the commandments, that is, it's more meant to keep us keep calamity from our lives. I think you're right when you said that. In effect.
Amen. Thank you.
And as bad as things are, I'm still not convinced that we're in the days of the book of Revelations. As bad as things are, it sure seems like it. Maybe we're in the period just beforehand, because I know I know there are other groups that are saying like this is pretty much it, and 2030, some people expect something to happen then. Wait and see approach. I'm still, for me to be 100% convinced, a few more things would have to happen. But I'm glad we're looking into it, because certainly what is happening today is definitely mirroring, without a doubt.
Yeah, I would agree, and I have reasons for believing it's fairly soon, definitely before 2030. And certainly we'll save those for the rest of Revelation. But I would say that definitely there's a lot of things, like who would think a pandemic would have shut down the entire world, 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? So and just the amount of control that World Economic Forum, the UN, the World Health Organization are gaining over the world. We're very much close to this new world order, this one world religion, one world government. I think those things are much more of a reality today than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
I believe we're in the beginning.
Yes, thanks.
The beginning of Soros, I believe that's where.
I agree. I feel, in the spirit that, we have to be bold now. And, we got to be prepared ASAP. It's not like, you go, sell your house and everything right now at this moment. No, but it's more just like you have to be building up our oil. So they talk about the 10 virgins, 5 with building up their spirit oil, and 5 were just kind of being complacent. And we need to build up our spirit. We need to be so strong in the spirit that whenever the world is telling us to go left and God puts on our heart to go right, we listen to him and go right. And so we got to have that voice, that small, still voice, so built up that when we hear that voice, Jesus says, my sheep will know my voice. You got to be able to hear that and then act on it. And that's kind of what I'm hoping everyone will sort of build up in these next few years, is just that where you get to that point where you just communicate with God on a regular basis, and you just feel and sense when he's telling you to do something, and you'll know it's his voice, and you won't have any doubt or hesitation in acting upon what he wants you to do.
Agreed. Yeah. Amen. 100%.
Thank you.
And,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little raspy today. When you're saying birth pains, are you just foreshadowing, or are you going to that later, or?
Birth pains? No. That's just a way to see Revelation. And in Matthew 24, that's what Jesus says. It'll be like birth pains, right? So I think we're in some birth pains right now. We're seeing like little glimpses of what's to come. And it's kind of God's way of preparing us. He's saying, hey, look what they did here. Look, when Trudeau kind of went and took everyone's account for donating to the convoy, right? That's a little glimpse of what they want to do. They want to have such control over your finances. That's a birth pain. That's a twinge. But later, when they introduce the CBDC, the digital currency, it's going to be even more control, right?
And
I think
also,
I think Matthew 24. If nobody's read it, to maybe for homework to go read it, because I think that's exactly where we are, is in that birth pain analogy. I think it's the perfect thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree, 100%.